Hi, I want to make a video on strange and misleading perceptions and how we understand things and view things. Sorry, I have a cold. I'm kind of sick right now, so if my voice seems a little nasally, please forgive me. And if the fireworks are going on outside, please forgive that because it is the 4th of July when I'm making these videos. What a wonderful night to choose to make videos on. And so many of them. I mean, 13 videos. That's a lot of videos to make in one night. So yes, strange and misleading perceptions when you're growing up mainly. So I guess in many cases we can understand that growing up, or not necessarily growing up, but as a child or as a kid, you have many misleading perceptions, or even as now people get, I think in many cases what I mean when I say misleading perceptions is that people get high, people get drunk, they look for their next fix, they look for the next buzz, their next time of getting in some kind of feeling, some kind of perception. In many cases, that's what we're doing. Yes, we're trying to get our next fix. Obviously, that's something about reality we can understand, but that's not the point I'm trying to make necessarily. But I guess just to broaden the subject a little bit. Yes, we are, in many cases, being misled by our perception. You get a little buzz or whatever it is. You drink a little alcohol. You smoke a little weed or whatever it may be, and you feel, or you get a little buzz from, say, smoking cigarettes, an addiction you're only trying to satisfy, say, to satisfy the addiction you had, and just satisfying the addiction, not doing anything more for yourself, but satisfying a deprivation created by the addiction. And that's all you're really doing, say, with something like that. In many cases, you need more and more of, say, a drug or something like life to get off on something, generally speaking, for every circumstance of existence, being a sentient being, interacting in the environment and trying to get your next fix and feeling good at least as much as you did last time when we only required one, and now it requires 1.5 or 2 to get the same satisfaction. So you need to wean yourself off of it for a while so that one becomes just as satisfying again. But regardless of that, the main thing is getting those perceptions, the high perceptions, feeling elated, feeling nice, and those are good things to feel because you're not necessarily feeling the negative, but you're feeling something that's not necessarily true unless, say, you're dying and you're coming closer, or not existing, or sleeping. You're sleeping and you're not feeling, you're a dreamless sleep, you're not feeling any pain, and that exists the way it exists, but it's misleading to the general understanding, the general existence of reality. Reality doesn't necessarily function that way, generally speaking, but it's a feeling that does exist. It's just not something that's everywhere. It's few and far between. So these experiences exist, but they're not necessarily accurate to the general existence of every sentient creature on Earth, and it's almost glibly not only necessarily escaping something like that, but it's glibly denying it in a way, because you're getting away from it, but you're almost in a way rejecting the fact that other people, not only the feelings you had before, but how everyone else is experiencing something, and how you're just trying to get your next fix, and the fix that you have could be taken away from someone else getting their fix. And that's something that we have to understand. What we're doing is, every time you're taking something, you're taking a pill. It could be a pill that can have gone to someone that actually needs it more than you. It could. It's a possibility. It's a value equation that it's worthwhile calculating and equating, but it's something that there's always a possibility, and we can't necessarily always tell and make those value judgments accurately. It's something that we can only speculate on, but the value judgments do exist. It's not something that doesn't exist. It's something that exists that we can't necessarily calculate or mutually understand to come to an agreement on, or necessarily an exact number, unless we figure out a way to put an exact number to it. But in many cases, I guess, another point I want to get across in this video is the idea of having these perceptions that come out of these feelings, and how you can have these feelings have an influence on what you can believe or what you don't believe. And what you can believe from these things. It's about what you get out of these experiences of feeling good. All of a sudden, your perception of reality changes, and when reality was just your specific point of view in that moment in time, and feeling elated, say from smoking pot or getting wasted, feeling good, feeling euphoric. And it's only that moment in time that you felt good. And it's only in that circumstance, and it's only because that specific circumstance and that specific substance made you feel good, as opposed to reality making you feel good as a whole entirely. It's something that exists based on a specific circumstance, and it's not a specific circumstance you can apply to all existing things. The general experience that you'll see out everywhere, and how you're going to see the general sentient creature existing. You're not going to see them existing in that state. But it's the beliefs and the perceptions that you get from these states that you have to recognize aren't necessarily true, and the beliefs that you can get, such as, say, reptilian people, or the people, the door people, opening the doors when you're doing LSD or whatever it is, doing these things and having these childlike perceptions and expectations of what existence has in store for you, but they don't necessarily have in store for you. It's not something that's necessarily real. It's a perception that you exist, and the perception exists itself, yes, but it doesn't exist beyond a perception. That's not a perception based on a specific circumstance that you're experiencing right now in this very moment, based on the things that you experience to create and make that experience. So in many cases, it requires very specific circumstances to have those specific feelings. In many cases, it's avoiding a negative, and that's all we're doing, and it requires specific circumstances to avoid those negatives or find ways out of those negatives when the default state is deprivation, and that doesn't take a specific circumstance. It just takes existing as a sentient being. Other than that being the specific circumstance, living in the circumstance, it doesn't require much specific. But to have your toe stubbed, of course, it requires that, but generally speaking, it doesn't require anything beyond that. So, I don't know if I reached my main point in this video, because I wrote this list a couple of weeks ago, and I can't remember exactly what's the points I'm trying to make. But I guess what I wanted to get a point across, if I'm going to make one last attempt at making the point, is that I guess when I was saying growing up, is when you're growing up, you're still maturing, and you still have a lot of expectations and ignorance around the world of what you have expectations or what you recognize to exist. And you still have mystical thoughts and mystical perceptions that make something seem more like it's more than what meets the eye. And it's exactly what meets the eye. There's nothing beyond the perception of seeing something. There's no grandiosity behind it. And if there is, the grandiosity doesn't lead anywhere. It's about ignoring the recognition of all these perceptions you have and not looking beyond the initial grandiosity perception and having that control you. But once you recognize that there is a distinction between intellectually recognizing something and recognizing something and having a perception of something, but recognizing it, but not necessarily feeling the pain of the intellectual understanding of realizing it means not much of anything. And what you're feeling makes it feel like it, but you recognize it, and it takes away from the body of that experience of making it feel like it has some real meaning beyond that. So it doesn't really have any meaning beyond that, but that's a different subject entirely. I guess the entire point is you're immature and you don't really recognize, in many cases, being fooled up into being an adult fully formed, recognizing the truth. You still get fooled by these perceptions, be it because you're a Borgite, you're a hive mind individual, it's living an existence, growing up in the average existence, experiencing these same old things, not being open to the idea, not recognizing the distinction between those feelings and what you can intellectually understand and making those distinctions. And I guess it takes not having those experiences and having the intellectual understanding before you have those experiences, at least to the extent that you may have them, that can fool you, that may seem to fool the average person. Having those experiences and recognitions before you have those experiences, realize just how the recognition and the intelligence to recognize the recognition that it's your intellectual understanding and your perceptual interaction and experience are two separate things, and if you don't recognize that, you're going to have the perception control your experience, your what you believe, and that's obviously where they come into conflict. And that's something that's obviously one of the main issues in existence, and trying to get over those hurdles and those problems. So yes, it's about not letting your perception get in the way of whatever you may see, a painting, anything, any perception you have of existence, any projection you have, any experience, anything whatever way of process you're experiencing existence. It doesn't require anything beyond the perception you're having. Doesn't mean anything beyond a certain point. It's about looking a little past the perceptions you're having and not letting those perceptions control you. But then again, that's the only thing that makes life so enjoyable, because once you recognize it, you're not going to be getting the same fulfilling moment out of it. But once you recognize it, I guess you don't really want to go back to the ignorance. But it is about recognizing. It is about recognizing the existence that you're in and looking past that childlike glee of seeing any kind of powerful, mighty perception, or what you may perceive, say looking at a tree or looking at the blue sky and having this fulfillment. But the fulfillment was coming only because you were not processing things correctly, or you were still not allowing your brain to mature. I guess it's usually, to a certain extent, some of my personal experience in recognizing this, how it became more and more obvious the older I got, and how it was becoming more and more thin. It wasn't as opaque. It was very flimsy. The more and more I matured, and it became more and more flimsy the older I got. I guess it's more personal experience. But you have this fullness when you see something, or you perceive something, or the magic like glee. Maybe it's nostalgia, looking back and having that perception in your mind, but it's something you recognize, you feel, and you recognize the feeling is no longer there because the intellect, the recognition gets in the way. Your intellectual recognition gets in the way of feeling that precise feeling. You can feel it, but it doesn't have as much weight because you're not having that veil put over you. The veil's out of the way, and you still have the feeling, but the veil, the white piece of paper is out of the way, and you're seeing past it. You're seeing exactly what you're looking at, and you're looking at nothing, as opposed to, oh, I can see something, but I can't see beyond. There must be something. The older you get, that white piece of paper goes away, if you can understand intellectually what's going on. And if the white piece of paper goes away, you can still have the feeling, but you're just not going to have the mystery or the grandiosity or something that seems so much more than it actually is. Looking at a painting, listening to a piece of music, saying whatever it is. I've mentioned this before, but mentioning it a little more exactly and how this actually exists. And it exists in a way where it requires looking beyond that. I guess it's the mystique and mystery beyond that, what you can actually expect a mystery, but you realize there is no mystery beyond it, because without the mystery, there is a mystery, you're going to solve it. And if there is no mystery to be solved, or the mystery can't be solved, what's the point in solving the mystery? And that's just another piece to add on top of it that I've mentioned before. And once you look past that, there is no mystery to look beyond. And if you have this grandiosity feeling, living in the moment, recognizing things just for what they are, expecting something grand beyond the moment, not just living the moment, but having expectation, having the white piece of paper, the goggles over your face, and having them create things more opaque or more unclear. But the unclearness is what makes it also worth the fight, to fight your way through the fog to get out to the other end. And once you're out to the other end, that's what you realize. You're out the end, and you're only ready to go right back in the fog to find another end, reach another boundary, reach another wall, find another way to have another fight for another day. And it's about recognizing all these things, all these pieces, fighting more, recognizing having this piece out of the way, recognizing the mystery. There's more of a mystery, recognizing the fight, the deprivation, all these things at once. Now these things have a lot to do with recognizing reality and how it can have take away from these perceptions of what you may find so satisfying and so pleasing, because they can go away. Not entirely. You can still have the feeling, but you're not going to have the same perception, the same feeling inside, the same little buzz in your brain, but you're not going to have the same perception. The perception is going to be more clear. And the clearer the perception, the more you're closer to reaching that dead end of recognizing exactly how the pieces are moving in the game. So I think I made this video long enough, and it's unclear enough, but I made the point just well enough. And if I have anything else to mention in this video, I'll always mention another video. So thank you, and until next time, bye.